The Sciforror Film Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Sciforror Film Podcast.
Before we carry on, anyone that listens to this and just listens to this must wonder what on earth we do to begin with, because pretty much for the last 3 weeks, you've started off pulling stupid faces, and all you do is we start off and I'm just laughing.
Well, I might encourage them to watch the video. You never know. Anyway, yes. This is a special edition thingy. When we did the report back from the Romford Horror Film Festival, I'm getting lost here now. One of the films that Scott went to see that I didn't see was a film called Fear Abides Nightly Glistens.
Yes.
And we were contacted by the cinematographer of that film, and he sent us a screener so that we could watch the film in more detail. And so we're going to do a review of that now for the pair of us, and then we will have an interview with the cinematographer Mark Solter afterwards. So let's do the review. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. So the film is, as I say, it's called Fear Abides Nightly Glistens from 2022. Director, not cinematographer. What am I talking about? Director Mark Solter. The writer Jeff Crane. No, try it again. Oh,
do you want to start this episode all over again?
I want to restart my head.
Oh, you've been trying to do that for years, but
start again. Right. Fear Abides Nightly Glistens, 2022. Director Mark Solter. The writer was Jeff Gain, and the cast is Michael Ferris, Jeff Gain, and Marilyn Solter. Okay. The synopsis says, perhaps I can't read this properly. I'm going to move things. Sorry. Here we go. Synopsis says, perhaps Mr. Baldovino's life of small, violent desperations has finally worn itself out, and the ritual of prey and succor, this unquenchable thirst for life, has come to an end, or will a new beginning lie in the hands of a long-lost friend? Dun, 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 dun. So yeah. Now you saw this at the film festival.
yes.
So you have a slight advantage over me because you've seen it on a big screen. I've only seen it on a nickel one.
Yes.
And I get the feeling that it may have had more of a impact on a larger screen.
To be honest, I think all of the films we saw at the film festival would have made. I know this is a bit weird. I'm biased judging this on the ones that I've seen elsewhere and what the ones we've seen on the big screen. And I think all of them have a bigger impact on the big screen. They're definitely, I don't know, you get more immersed in the film.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it also has an impact on the cinematography and that sort of thing, because on a smaller screen, you don't get quite as much detail. You can't see quite as much detail as you can.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, for me, I thought, it's got a very interesting start to this. And the sound, the use of sound to set the atmosphere is really good.
Yeah.
And I think first of all, it's just the sound, and then some music comes in, and that helps as well. But it all sets the atmosphere really well, and the atmosphere is the main thing about this film, I think.
Yeah. It is. It definitely. For me personally, the atmosphere sets it so much off, better off in the cinema, because obviously being at home watching it on a small screen, you've got all the distractions from outside light. You've got the in the cinema, you've got it's a dark room, and that atmosphere is just so much more intense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like it. Um, I mean, yeah, I mean, the atmosphere is fantastic. It builds up, and it's really, really quite intense. There's some interesting camera angles used in
Yeah,
the film. Some of the camera angles are really quite strange, but they really work well.
yeah.
Again,
I
with,
think
with setting the atmosphere.
yeah, I was gonna say I think the camera work, especially some of the cinema, the odd shots in it, I think go so well with setting the atmosphere. Like the music and the sound help so well, but then there's certain angles that I think if it had been done in the other way, like done just a normal angle or as a sort of with the music, it might have worked. But I think it just that brings it together so well.
Yeah. Oh no, I agree. I agree. Um, my thing with this is that don't get me wrong, I like the film. I do like this film,
Yeah,
but I couldn't quite get a grip on exactly what was going on, and I want to know more. I want to know more
yeah,
about the past, his past, and the past between him and the other person, and I
yeah.
also
See,
want to know about what went on after this film.
yeah,
You know,
see, when you see it in the cinema, obviously I didn't have the synopsis to it. I just had like brief little description, and obviously we got sent through the press pack for it, so yeah, it
yeah,
had a lot more detail of the synopsis, a lot more of information about it. But and I think that not having that at the cinema does take it away because of the fact that again, I was the same feeling is sort of left going. But like, how was the relationship built up between them two? What went on before and after?
yeah,
And it sort of not took away from the film, but sort of it left them open questions.
yeah,
And after reading the synopsis, it filled in a few, but they still left me with that bit of what happened next, what brought them together in the first place, and what's then going to happen. And I think
yeah,
it's a good film, but I think it left me with more questions unanswered than there were, and
yeah.
not that that's a bad thing in the film, but I
No,
think it's
no.
just it's that little that little sort of bugbear that I'm like I just want to know more, and it's not a bad thing,
Well, I was
but
going
it's
to say
just
the thing about it is it's one of those films that's left me thinking I'd like to see this expanded because I'd like to know more about it. But there are films we've seen where we get to the end and we haven't found out what's going on completely. We haven't been absolutely sure what's going on, but we haven't cared.
no,
But with this, you do. You want to know. You want to know what's happening
yeah.
or what's going on, and you want to know more.
I think
So that's a really good thing because it draws you in. It's drawing you into that universe within the film.
yeah, I think you were saying about expanding it. I think this even if they keep this section and put it in sort of not in the middle, but like sort of you got the bit before the title sequence comes up. You've got that bit of a prologue to explain the little bit of history beforehand,
Yeah,
to then come into it and explain then what happens afterwards. Not to like massive detail, but enough for it to possibly delve into them unanswered questions that you've got and the little the little niggets of well, what happened, what's going to happen, what was, and that sort of and also answer that even if it's just that a little 5-10 minute thing of how they met before, what was going on,
yeah,
what led them to that, and then
yeah,
sort of put up a thing of years later or whatever to then go to this is then the process of what happens next.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a really good film. It's well made, well acted. The cinematography, I say, is great.
Oh
It's
yeah.
well paced. The atmosphere is fantastic. It just, I would just like to. I'd like there to be more of it.
Yeah, I was saying, I was just, it was almost the thing that I sat there in the cinema when I watched this the first time. I sat there at the end of it, and I was like, and it is that when it come up like the credits, it was like, and it wasn't the fact of my brain going, is that it as a bad thing, but I'm just like, it was sort of that disappointment of like, is that it? I want to
Yeah,
know more. I want to know. I want to, know. And saying all credit to everyone involved because, as we've spoken about before, there are so many films that we've watched to this. So you get to the end of it and go, all right,
yeah, yeah,
or they've left you that little bit of okay, I'd like to know more, but I'm not bothered if I don't find out.
yeah,
But
yeah,
for it to for have a film to sit there and like that sort of I want to know more and the constant, no matter like again, no matter how many times you watch it, going, I want to watch it, I want to know more, I need to know more what's going on, what's going to happen,
Yeah,
how things are going to progress.
absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, it is a really good film, and it's really well made. I'd like to see more stuff because I mean, Mark Solter has made other films. I'd like to watch some more of his stuff and see what it's like. So it'd be interesting to talk to him and to
Yeah,
discuss this film and his
well,
other films and
it's
just
just and the fact that just my main thing for him, my thing that I always see and talk about a lot of things is whether or not for me, if he feels humbled for the fact that he's got his idea and everything, and
mm,
like he's been able to put this idea forward, and it's this idea is he's been able to bring forward and bring it into something,
yeah,
along with everyone else involved, like the cinematography, the sound, everything, the people involved, the fact that whether or not it is actually fully to what the writer wanted, or whether or not he's gone above and beyond or anything like that. But
mm,
even that, I would love to be able to sit there and just go, like, it's almost one of the things that sat there before, and I was just like, love to spend 5 minutes just talking to the writer and just go, so where did this idea come from?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
it's a very good idea.
Oh yeah, it is. It works really well.
Mm.
Okay, well, we'll have a word with Mark in a few moments, and there you go. That's the film, and next up is the interview. Right, I have with me Mark Solter, who is the director of the film Fear Abides Nightly Glistens, which we've reviewed. Hi, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Not bad, thank you. Not there, thank you. Yeah, as I say, Scott unfortunately is not well, so he won't be joining us. But we wish him all the best and everything. Now, Scott had the opportunity of seeing your film on the big screen at the film festival. I unfortunately didn't because of the fact that at the time there were two different things going on in different screens. So he went to one and I went to the other. But I have seen it now because you gave us the screener to watch it. So it's very good. We both thought it was a really good film. We both enjoyed the film. But before we get into this film in particular, give me a bit of background of who you are and how you got into the filmmaking and that sort of thing.
Well, I've been doing it probably over 17, 18 years. I'm a cinematographer by trade. I came to it through ambitions in music, that figuring I was a better listener than I was a musician. So anyway, just kind of landed into it on various little projects people were interested in. I started training myself on more or less that. I had an agent briefly as a writer, sold and optioned some small projects a few years ago, and then decided to pursue more of the visual side as a cinematographer in that. Like any approach, you just meet people and just continue on. And so that was my figuring this was the thing I enjoyed doing and could accomplish some things at, and it's gotten me by so far. So
Cool. So, I mean, have you done a lot of shorts so far?
quite a few shorts. There's a few features out there of various kinds, various types of people. Shorts. This project in particular is kind of a thing that I do with. I met an actor in New Zealand, Jeffrey Gain, who plays in the film.
Yeah.
I met Jeff, oh gosh, I think it's about 8 years ago or so, on a project I was doing in New Zealand. And we became kind of fast friends and decided pretty much every time we would see each other, he came to America once, but I had to go down there frequently to work on various things. And so we decided that every time we would run into each other, we would make something. And it was kind of based on limitations, that if, whatever equipment was available, and we would write it fairly quickly, and then we would shoot it fairly quickly. Post-production would take a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And so, yes, quite a few little projects. I think they're all kind of listed perhaps on the Internet Movie Database at this point, but it's mostly kind of shorts because I work primarily in ad work and promo and that sort of thing, some second unit and all of that. So
Right. Can I ask you, is it difficult,
Yeah.
as somebody who is primarily a cinematographer, is it difficult to be a director and have somebody else doing the cinematography?
no, not really. I mean, because that's a very good question, Andy. It's you know, I think if you're in that situation, you've likely, or I would have likely chosen someone. I think hiring a cinematographer is probably like hiring an editor, an actor, or anybody for that matter, because they all bring very distinct talents
Yeah.
and ways of expressing language, and as I call it, kind of designing the philosophy of look in a certain way. And once you've sort of established that criteria with someone you can trust, it's great.
Yeah.
I find that even with the ad work I'm shooting and directing mostly, and in these shorts, gosh, let's see, Jeff and I, well, I've done for other people, they've been good. Let's see, the one I can only kind of really refer lately to the ones that I've been doing with Jeff, because that's we've done 4 of these now. Let's see, Moon Smells Like Gunpowder, Tin Matchbox Empty, Fear Abides, Fear Aparge. Yeah, and we're on our 5th one right now.
Right.
And so we kind of started talking about it, although that one we approached in a little bit different way, but I hope this is answering your question.
Yeah.
That working as a director and a DOP, it gets a little complicated, but as I say, the resources are quite small and simple on these shorts. I mean, for example, Fear Abides came about when we were both going to the North Europe Festival. We had been welcomed into that festival to screen a film that we had done called The Moon Smells Like Gunpowder.
Yeah.
And while we were there, his route from New Zealand to Dubai to Belgium, and mine from Los Angeles to Belgium, somehow our jet lag just was in sync with each other. And so we decided that over several hours one night we would just make a film. And so he had already started kind of working on an idea when he was flying over. He had written out essentially the letter, the monologue, and then we met over breakfast over it, discussed it, and then that night we shot everything that was in the hotel, to the grace of people that were sleeping around us when we were out in the hallway trying to do dolly moves with a side table and that sort of thing. Anyway, and then when I got back to America, I shot a couple little pickups with none other than my mother playing Zagan in the piece. And so and that's how that happened. So
Yeah. No, I mean, it's one of the things that Scott was saying is we're always fascinated when it comes to short films, especially ones that are very intense like this is, and it's about whether the what comes out on the screen is what the writer and yourself intended it to be, or were there certain compromises you had to make in order to actually make it work on the screen?
that's a really good question, because actually all of them, I can answer that question with reference to how we've kind of done all of them. I would say that they really came about in the post-production phase. I know it sounds like a bit of a cliche, is like, because again, it's the 3rd stage of writing essentially.
Yeah.
But that's a good question. I mean, they really kind of find their feet when they're being put together at the end. With the exception of Fear, the other ones never had pickups done. In fact, we did one in the middle of those 2 films. I think we shot it in 30 minutes. Because I was flying out that evening and we decided we're just going to do something in New Zealand. And he was writing while I was scrambling around building lights and stuff, and tearing pillowcases for soft sources and whatever we did.
Yeah.
And that one turned out to be like a 13-minute film in the end, and it was a 1-to-1 ratio, of course, so there were no real reshoot options. But hopefully I'm answering your question. Is they really come about in the kind of the post phase, but we do a lot of sort of pre-discussion about what we're going after. We talk a lot about theme. It's I'm not a real tech head when it comes to filmmaking. I mean, the technical is incredibly important and all of that, but it's certainly not a place I start from. And all of that is, you know, why we're here, why we're wanting to express these ideas. Why is, you know, Mr. Baldovino this sort of failing character in this way? So, please.
I mean, one thing I'll say about this one, and looking at your other stuff, I think it's very obvious, and maybe it's because of the fact that you're doing them in such short time frames. The films rely a lot more on atmosphere and character driven story rather than effects and shock or anything like that.
Yeah.
And one thing we both said, and I really liked, is that the use of sound and music, and also the use of silence within that, really built the atmosphere in this film for me. It really kind of, right from the start, it's the atmosphere starts to build up and you can feel it and it draws you into the film.
Sure. Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, that was a real challenge, because in all of these, with the exception of Fear, when I have a twin brother who produces and engineers. He's on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. So he does the sound side on the East Coast. I do the visual side on the West Coast. And I got him involved on some of the sound design with Fear, because it was the first time he had explored working in the re-recording environment, you know, where because I've never done sound design before until The Moon Smells Like Gunpowder, Tin Matchbox, and Fear. And I had talked to some sound designers, talked to them about sort of the diegetic, non-diegetic approach, some things I might be interested in, and found that it was a little bit more challenging and it was going to take a little bit longer to try to place someone. And I thought, well, you know, I like Brian Eno. Why don't I try sound? Yeah. And so it was just, and literally just using the most basic of tools available, because I don't come from that training. I know very little about mic placement and that sort of thing. And so, but I decided to just go out with a little Zoom recorder and start to design the atmosphere around that. And then Jeff and I would collaborate. I would cut some things together and send that to him, and he would have some things to say about it. And then we'd come back and build the soundscape that way. So,
it's one of the things one of the things I like is, and it's something I think sometimes in big budget feature films they kind of forget, is the fact that silence can be used just as much to build an atmosphere as sound, and leaving just these little gaps in the music and in the sounds really kind of draws you in, because you're waiting. It's that thing of waiting for the next shoe to fall, you know. It's kind of like, when's it gonna happen, when, you know, and it kind of pulls you into the whole thing. And I think that really works well.
Yeah, and you know, there've been many, I mean, filmmakers in the past like Tarkovsky and all of that have really capitalized in that world through their own vision, and certainly having experienced their films, I think motivated that, probably coming from a certain interest in certain types of music, prog music. I like a lot of progressive rock music, always have since I was a kid. And, you know, I just think that sort of experience informs, but to your point, I would say in Fear, and it was something that I caught much later when it was being cut together, was when we're kind of behind Mr. Baldovino in the beginning, when he's in the room and it's kind of low and you see the shadow play up on the wall and that sort of thing. But when it comes around on him, there's this moment of silence, and then he takes in this small little breath.
Yeah.
And I hadn't caught that before. And it was something clearly missed when it was shot. It just happened when we shot it, because it was just the two of us in a hotel room at 2:00 in the morning. And that really excited me. Like, I thought, wow, just, you're right. So to your point about the silence is, you know, even I come back later having seen something like that or experienced something like that, and it's like, yeah, that's great. I mean, that little silence, as you say, because I was really waiting for that moment, and then when he gives that little breath, I thought, oh, all right, now we're in.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is
So,
the whole the camera angles and the lighting and all that kind of thing, the cinematography, all that sort of thing, again helps to build the atmosphere and draws you into it. And I think they all work so well together in this film. They kind of complement each other, and it's like it's a film that obviously was made by a team that all wanted it to make it work.
yes, and it's interesting because it really started as just Jeff and myself, and then when I got back to America, and this would have been, well, we had done that right before COVID. The COVID year, I sort of cancel out because everything changed. My
Yeah,
life, everybody's life changed entirely,
yeah,
and so I continued on. Gosh, what was that? So when so it was about probably late 2020. I just came out to visit with family and all of that, and decided, hey, could I get some help from you? Want to be in a movie? You know, that kind of thing. And they're like
yeah,
eye
yeah.
rolls. But no, she was absolutely wonderful. And do you mind if I light a fire in your garage, and that sort of thing? And it was like, and so she kind of became the special effects assistant and all of that. But yeah, and then so just pulling in, little bits and pieces from people, and then deciding that since my brother was in the music world, to have him, give it a go at this
Yeah.
re-recording thing, which he said was, taught him a whole new set of skills that he didn't realize just how complicated re-recording. In fact, I just finished a film in New Zealand, and I got back a few weeks ago, where we were doing the re-recording mix down at TVNZ, and that was a whole different. I had never been in a room for that experience. I've done color work and all of that, and been in those sessions, but never in the remix stage. And it was remarkable. I mean, it's amazing what these people could do. But so anyway, that's why I involved my brother on it, and then of course Jeff Gain, who's the actor in it, has his music group Fear Up Harsh with his partner Michael Ferris, and
All
they
right.
had crafted the music for it as well. So in the end, it was a very small team. Yeah, five
Yeah,
of us,
yeah.
I think. Yeah. So.
But I mean, it all works really well together and complements each other, as I say. We, I really like the film, but
Sure.
the thing about it is, it's like there are quite a few films we've seen where we've said, "Oh, it would be nice to see what went on either side of that, because it would just sort of like to just interesting to see that." But with this one, it was very much like, I want to know more about the whole thing.
Mm,
I want to know more about their relationship. I want to know more about what happened before and after.
sure.
And it's really kind of like, to the point where at the end of it, I kind of felt like, you know,
Right, right. Well, I'm not sure whether that's a good frustration or a failing on my part, or maybe a
no,
combination of both.
it's a good
It could be
frustration.
a lot of things.
It's a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
frustration, but it's just sort of
yeah.
like, I just, you just kind of go, I want to know more. I want more from it. But the problem with this is, I've seen films where people have tried to expand short films into longer features and things like that,
Sure.
and quite often they lose that atmosphere. They lose that kind of feeling that makes
Right.
you want to know more.
Yeah,
So
I can't imagine that challenge. I mean, everything that we've made, I don't see expanding at all. I'm working on other projects at the moment in that
yeah,
regard, but what we will be doing is taking Moon, Tin, and Fang, and I'm going to put them together. I'm shooting kind of little interstitials. I've decided I platform in 35 because I think I have about 6,000 feet in a refrigerator somewhere I need to shoot up. And so I'm shooting little interstitials because Jeff and I, we've spent a lot of time together when we are together on these things. And we have found a sort of happy, well, I guess a kind of a thread between these three characters in an accidental kind of way. And that's probably just an extension of the reflection of who we are and what
yeah,
we like, who knows. So there will be a longer version. I will certainly share that. with you if you're interested,
Oh,
of
yeah.
all three of those films as one big, and I think it'll be about, well, it'll be an hour. I think it'll
So,
be about an hour.
effectively, rather than being a trilogy, they're kind of companion pieces.
Exactly. Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because I couldn't think how to really put it. Going, well, what do you call a three-song or a three film cycle of unrelated events? And I think they are very complementary in a certain way.
Yeah,
And not trying to force that issue, but again, I think as you mentioned earlier, finding things later on and how they come together is, I think, even assembling those three will tell a different kind of event.
yeah.
It will or it won't, I don't know. Again, I'm only responsible for a certain percentage of all of this. It's all up to everybody else who sees it. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I'd be interested to see that, definitely.
sure.
So, what else are you working on at the moment? Are you working on any more shorts that we're likely to be able to see in further festivals, or?
Yeah. Well, there's one that was finished. It's not a horror at all. It was a narrative that was done, called Everyone Writes Memoir. Jeff's not involved in this one. It's with some other people in New Zealand while I was there down doing some other work. And excuse me, that one, we're wrapped on that. It's kind of starting into a festival organization. We've got some of that put together, but that's gotten a little complicated. We'd like to get that moved along a bit, because it's only got two actors in it, Gloria Blake and Anthony Crumb. And Anthony Crumb, if you saw any of the Lord of the Rings the Rings of Power, he was Otamo. He's the curly-haired blonde guy. I think he dies in episode 5. They find him in the house, which, when we were having a drink a while back, he was a little disappointed about that, but that's how they write them. And so, but we're all really, just because we had started everyone before he got that role. And then when I was back there in 2021 for about 6.5 months, we did some pickups with him on that, and that unit was gracious to release him, or just have him at least available to do some of that.
That's cool.
So that film is done. It's about 40 minutes long. Outside of other things I'm doing, I'm working on Or Current Resident, which is a film that I'm looking to direct, script that I wrote. I'm going to the Dakotas next month on a little recce for that to see. And like anybody, we're just trying to find more finance and opportunities with that. And until then, I'm shooting kind of commercial stuff locally. And then Jeff and I are going to Spain for Fear, because a little festival out there invited us and said they'd put us up in a little place in Taraga if we wanted to come out for it. So we're going to go and experience that. Yeah, they're really lovely people. The Galacticat, I think, is the little festival that's out there. So
Cool.
Yeah,
that sounds good.
I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
So,
I look forward to seeing more of your stuff, actually, because as I say, I think that the atmosphere, the look of this film is really good, and obviously you've got a really good eye, and you've got you've got a great way of telling stories, which I think it's nice to see that there are people out there who don't just go for shock and awe, and don't go just for jump scares and things like that. They're more interested in building atmosphere and characterizations and stories, which is what I think is missing from a lot of horror stuff nowadays. I think it's become very reliant on jump scares and buckets of blood.
Sure. Well, it's a new genre for me. I could sit and talk all day long about the sort of nuance and things going on in films like The Shining, and certainly the favorite of John Carpenter's The Thing, which it's even just those frightened pardon me, those frightened moments between all these characters on what the next decision should be made in The Thing that really takes me over the top and makes that monster, if you will, or that collection of monsters as it mutates, even more frightening. And I think that's the stuff that I really enjoy about the medium, although I would say that I'm pretty virginal to the medium itself. I do try to watch as much as I can, but I try to see just about everything there is. So
no, it's, well, I'm going to say this. I think this is a really good film.
Thank you.
I loved watching it on the screen. I would like to have seen it on the big screen. I must admit that would have been, because it always gives another dimension to these films. When you
Right.
watch them on a smaller screen, they don't have quite the same impact. And that's one of the things that Scott said when we did the review. He said, like, it sort of, it had a much bigger impact when you're watching it in a
Wow.
cinema with a full sound system and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
But I enjoyed it a lot, and as I say, I'm looking forward to see what else you do. I'd
Thank
like to
you.
wish you all the best with this and with future
you.
projects.
And to Scott's help as well. And I really appreciate you and Scott taking the time to do this. This is
It's
really
no problem
important.
at all.
And
We
it's-
enjoy doing the reviews, and we enjoy talking to filmmakers, because I love talking to people who make films, because of the fact that it's nice to get behind the scenes and to talk to the people behind the movies and find out more
Sure.
about their motivation and their likes and dislikes and all that kind of thing.
Right.
It's an important, to me, it's an important part of the film, because of the fact that what goes on in your head is ultimately says it comes out on the screen, and so therefore knowing more about that, it can give you a different opinion of films and a different sort of way of looking at it.
Sure. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I will definitely keep in touch, and I keep following you on your website or your Facebook page and all your other, and you've got the new one. Well, no, it's not new. It says the Sci-Horror. And I've been listening to episodes of Sci-Horror, and I did catch Scott mentioning the film.
Yeah.
And so thank you.
Well, we did a full review of the whole festival, and then we split it into 3 parts, one for each sort of day.
Sure.
So that's there. But we have done a full review for this show. Yes, thank you for joining me.
Great.
And taking
Thank
time
you.
out. I know it's not easy because of the fact we're on opposite sides of the world, but
No worries.
it's been really good talking to you. Thank you very much.
I'll stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank
Be
you.
well, Andy.
Thank you. So everybody watching, thank you very much for joining us. Look out for Fear Abides Nightly Glistens and future films by Mark Solter, and we will see you again next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.
The Sciforror Film Podcast.